Let me record an intro real quick. Wasn't gonna record an intro, but I'm doing it anyway because I haven't done it in a while. People are bitching. So back here working on the Magna. Got my buddy with me here still. He's still fucking with me. You guys saw from the intro earlier. So yeah, we're down to the nitty gritty on the Magna. We don't have much left. Today I'm gonna try the tank's being painted right now, so that's not done yet. I'm gonna fix the rear brakes because that isn't done. I need to disassemble the front wheel assembly so I can strip the paint off of it and take it to go get the forks rebuilt. I need to strip the paint on my headlight assembly as well. I gotta think of other stuff. I definitely need more stuff. Seabiscuit will live again. That's the new name according to him. Seabiscuit. He even wrote it on the wall over there. I'll probably clean up the wiring underneath the seat, make it all nice and pretty, and I want to make sure that the handlebar's clear. But I guess there's really no way to do that without reassembling the forks. I did get the top clamp back from powder coating today. So it looks nice and pretty in black. I'll try to put all the wires back in it and make sure everything looks good here. But the clutch kit, I'll try to come back here and put it in and install it. That's it. That's obviously the old tank. I just have it on there to check the handlebar clearance. I'm gonna do kind of a different video because my last video people complained. They said it was just too boring. So while I'm doing this, I'm just gonna kind of talk about the Magna a little bit and as I try to fix the rear brake. So nothing to do it but to do it. So let's get started. Every time I come in here, he's got something new that he wants to do to my bike. Last time it was the fairing, the front fairing. Now look at, honestly, you thought I'd hate this? This is a tail from like an old F4i. Gixxer. That actually looks super fucking cool. Like, I'm kind of bummed on how cool it looks. It's got such a neat design to it. I feel like I could really make this thing work. Yeah, I could totally, dude, if I just shove it down, bet, this is happening.
Dude, you could actually make that work.
I know I could. The seat could just go right over it. Like,
and then take
dude, how's it look with the seat on? Essentially like that. Not on this bike, but another bike, definitely.
You can totally do it on that bike.
I even like the color scheme, that's the thing. Like,
yep.
That's the look. That's good, that's nice and off the ground. I found out that the reason that the front brakes, if you watch, front brakes are locking because of this like weird, the thread is not, it's like, if I push it, then it'll do it, but it locks. So I'm gonna disassemble the whole back rotor, or the back drum, probably rethread that, make sure it's nice and good and clean. I got a tap and die that'll make that nice and good. And like the rear brake still works good. That's why I'm taking it apart to see how fuckered it is. Now, if you haven't heard the story of how I got the Magna, I'll tell you guys now. It's actually a pretty shitty story because of what I did to get it originally, and then the second time around too. We'll go into that in a second. But so at the time, I had a 1982 Honda CM450E that I found in a barn that I paid, maybe $300 for. It turned over and it would run, but it wouldn't stay running. It would just idle. So I built this 1982 Honda CM450E as best I could. I think I know how this goes. I wasn't really paying attention. You know, I sold it because I built it the way I wanted to, which is my shitty first ever hardtail. I went to Home Depot and I got some thick ass steel blocks. I think it was like, now I think about it, it really wasn't that thick. It was probably like a 1/4 of an inch thick steel. Just a big thick steel, flat plate steel, you know, and I got one big long piece, cut it in two, measured them out, drilled the eye holes exactly the same, and then hardtailed it that way. Just flat plat steel, man. Not a good idea on how to hardtail a motorcycle, you know? That thing was such a piece of shit, but it was my piece of shit, you know? I worked really hard on it, and then I got rid of it. I sold it for $1,000. And the way I sold it was really funny, and this is a bad story because I'm about to include someone's real name, but my buddy John Mayhaus wanted to buy it. And he's like, how much? And I tuned the carburetor, I got it running pretty good, and it wouldn't die on me anymore, and it was reliable. So he's like, how much you want for it? And I was like, oh, $1,000. I'll take $1,000 for this barely running, not registered, no title 1982 Honda CM450E that I had never insured or registered, by the way. And he's like, yeah, sure, that sounds reasonable. So he's getting ready to give me $1,000 for this fucking bike. And we're driving around my apartment complex at the time, and he's like, will it do a wheelie? And I'm like, will it do a fucking wheelie? Oh, let me show you, bud. By the way, I'd never done a wheelie before in my life. I just told him that it would because I'd hopped a curb on it once or something like that. And I was like, oh yeah, it's totally a wheelie. We're in my apartment complex. I'm wearing no gear, no gloves, like those toe shoes, those Vibrams. I'm wearing Vibrams. And I get it to about 10 miles an hour in my apartment complex. No helmet either, by the way. This is the dumbest story I've ever had, I have to tell. Ripped that bitch up way fast. Like, I think I clutch dumped it first gear, and I freak out, I set it back down, I lose control of it, and I lay it down on its side in the apartment complex. Thankfully, I was totally fine. Nobody else got hurt. And the bike was pretty okay actually too. The only thing it damaged was the headlight assembly that I had just fixed. And rather than buying a new headlight assembly, I just used fiberglass and resin and fixed it, sanded it, bondoed it, and painted it. Like, it looked good. It looked really good. I'll see if I can find the photos to include in the video. But it cracked it, obviously, because I laid it right on the headlight. Everything else is fine. He's like, damn, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. That'll still be $1,000 though. Like, what a fucking asshole. I mean, I fixed the headlight for him. God, I can't believe I did that. Looking back on it now, I'm like, what a prick. He ended up wrecking that thing like 3 or 4 times. Yeah, so that's the story of how I bought and sold my first motorcycle. Actually, those brake pads aren't the best, but there's still plenty of pad on them. Really just absolutely douchey story. Actually, these things should be almost perfectly fine, seeing how I'd never used my rear brakes, because the rear brakes didn't work. Oh, this wasn't even bolted in though. That makes sense. So, sell that motorcycle for $1,000. I used it on, like, who knows what I used that money on. No, I remember what it was. I bought an AK-47. I remember this. Walked into a gun store, paid them, I think, $450, $500, got an AK-47, 2 magazines, and 100 rounds. No questions asked, took 10 minutes. Just a little Wasser 10. And this is where it gets really bad. I'm not pro-gun, I'm just anti-everything else. And buy this AK for like 450 bucks, maybe 480 after tax, you know? And this is where it gets really upset. Please don't judge me for this, but people are gonna not like me after this one. Remember, this is years ago. This is literally, so Sandy Hook happens, right? Sandy Hook, terrible tragedy happens. People get killed, but immediately after that, gun grabbers go fucking bananas. People buy AKs and ARs by the thousands. You can't find them in stores anywhere. 1x6, so 1x6 mil. Yeah, it looks like 1x6. So as a joke, this started out as a joke. I put it up for sale on, I think Gunbroker? Whatever the one that you buy and sell, like Craigslist, essentially. I put it online to sell at $2,400. This is a Wasser 10, it cost me $450. It was on the shelf for $450. I think I paid a little bit more after tax. I get a call that afternoon from a guy who's like, I have $2,000, I can be there today. And I was like, yeah, I think anybody would be dumb not to, but buying AKs and ARs was kind of already getting hard. And not to mention that gun grabbers bought up all the guns. So I sold that AK to some guy off of Gunbroker for $2,000. 100% legal. Don't get me wrong. It's 100% legal. What I did, but I feel bad about it. The guy could be a felon for all I know. I asked him. I said, "Hey, are you a felon?" He goes, "No." I go, "Well, good enough for me, you know." Trying to get $2,000 for something I paid 500 bucks for. I think that anybody essentially would be dumb not to. But looking back on it now, I'm like, that was sketchy. So I immediately take that money and start looking for motorcycles again. And lo and behold, I find this thing, this fucking crapshoot of a bike in North Carolina. I lived in Brunswick at this time. I think 8 hours round trip, if I remember right. But I find this thing, the guy's got it listed for $2,000. I say, hey, I have $1,500. Because here I am making deals. You know, I've already made my money off of this shitty Wasser 10. Why not go a couple $100 off? I go to North Carolina and I get this thing. And it wasn't in bad shape, but it certainly could have been better. No suspension. I didn't register it. I didn't insure it, and I rode it home. 8 hours back from North Carolina to Georgia. Middle of the night. I didn't even have my motorcycle license at the time. I didn't get my motorcycle license till after I had my first F4I, and I got 2 tickets for it. Because it was hard to lie about it the second time. When the guy has, you have a no motorcycle license on your record. I'm like, what? Oh, look at that. That's some good ass threading right there, boys and girl. The single girl that watches my videos. Shout out to all my lady. My mom, actually she doesn't even watch my videos because it makes her heart feel weird. She's like, you're giving me a heart attack when you do that 200-mile-an-hour shit. I'm like, Mom, it's just a little bit illegal. I mean, you see the video, you know I made it home safe. I feel bad about it. I really do. I do feel bad about the whole thing. If I had to do it all over again, would I? No. Maybe if I knew a little bit more about the person, I'd have asked more questions. I know you guys are tired of seeing me clean shit, but just suck it up one more time. if that was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me, you know what I'm saying? Tell people this, but nobody believes me. One of the small benefits you get to a hardtail, you never have to really adjust your chain again. People are gonna say, of course you have to adjust your chain. What do you mean? Now you still do get some flex in your chain. When you accelerate, you know, your chain pulls tight. When you decelerate, it lets loose. So obviously it'll still stretch a little bit. It doesn't really stretch, but you know what I'm saying. But since you don't have suspension anymore in the rear, your wheel's not going up and down with the road, and it's not putting extra suspension torque on it. So oddly enough, if you have a hardtail, you don't have to adjust your chain as much. And just to prove it, I've had this exact same chain and sprocket, unlubricated, unadjusted, on this bike for about 10,000 miles. I have not lubricated it once. I haven't adjusted it, haven't had to. No issues. It literally, all it does is just pull the sprocket at this point. The downside is that you blow your forks out really easily because all the suspension's in the front, so. As cool as it looks, if I figure out whose idea it was to put 4 exhaust pipes on this thing right in front of where you change the wheel, I'll punch him in the dick. By the way, it's a cool, I don't know, like 30 degrees in here maybe. But back to my story about the Magna. So buy this, I rebuilt it. You know, this is before YouTube at this point. Kind of do a little bit of work to it, not much. Kind of work on the gas tank. You guys know the story about me, the General Nutrition Center, GNC, where I was working there. Got accused for some shit I didn't do. I lost my job. I need money. So I get on Craigslist and I list this thing for sale. And it takes me forever to sell this bike. I say forever. I think I thought it was gonna take a lot longer. It felt like it took really long, but I think it took me like 2 or 3 weeks. But I had for sale signs on this. I rode around with it often with the word for sale written on it. It's on there tight. I really needed it sold because I needed money. I didn't have a job. And I never wanted to sell it. The only thing I ever regret was selling this bike. I also thought that I wanted a sport bike at the time too, but that wasn't my concern really. It was getting rid of this thing so I could pay bills, essentially is what I wanted. You know, still going to college full time. I had a full-time job that I lost. I think I ended up selling it for 2,500 bucks, but I finally get a job. I get my feet back out underneath me. When Dixie, that's right, when Dixie hired me. Because grocery stores will hire anybody. Grocery stores will hire a felon, they don't care. After I get my feet underneath me, I start looking for that bike again. Can't find it. Pick up a blue F4i and start doing YouTube. That's where you guys come into play. Okay, y'all are gonna see some ghetto shit. I know, I just save it for the comments, please. If it looks dumb, if it works, it's dumb. The good thing is that it worked. So I'm basically just gonna hit these forks and whatnot with some paint stripper just to get this stuff off. I could probably use Gooby Gone, but I want this shit to come off like now, especially this stuff around the ring too. That's pretty thick. That's why I put it on this pad so it doesn't get anywhere else, doesn't affect anything else. This is aircraft paint remover. This shit will ruin anything. So while that strips, I'm gonna kind of like pull everything out of here best I can and just kind of reorganize it, clean it up a little bit. This doesn't need to be too crazy. Most of this you can't ever see. So back to the story though. So I started doing YouTube, right? And then this is where you guys come into play. because I get a message from somebody saying like, hey dude, you know that bike you always talk about, the Magna on your videos? Is this it for sale? So I look at it, sure the fuck enough, it's the bike. It's the same bike. And it's a little bit, a lot of you guys know this story. It was in really rough condition. But they wanted like $2 grand for it, and I didn't have the money at the time. I was like, it's really cool, man. I appreciate you finding this. I can't afford it, but you know, it's really nice to be able to see it. He's like, oh man, no worries. Then I essentially woke up the next day from a message from the same guy with a link to a GoFundMe with all the money already in the account ready to go. I was like, holy shit, you know? So I took the money, deposit. It did, however, look pretty sketchy, I won't lie. But I went and picked up the bike, and looking back on it now, knowing all the controversy that it caused at the time, I think people still comment about the whole GoFundMe shit, even though it's been probably 4 years, maybe longer. My concept of time's always messed up, so it could be less than that. Had I known that at the time, I don't know if I would have bought the bike back. But because of that reason, I'd never sell this thing. This is the little aluminum battery pan that I had welded up to kind of set everything I wanted to be. Whoever wired this just was like, oh man, you don't need blinkers, fuck blinkers. If I meet the man who did this, I'm gonna kick him square in the dick. Okay, so he triple wrapped everything, gotcha. Dude, look at this splicing job. Oh, might be a lost cause, you know. You don't need turn signals in Georgia. You use hand signals. I once had a cop tell me, look, you don't have turn signals, so that's a ticket. I'm like, well, can't I just use hand signals? He goes, well, yeah. And I was like, but I use hand signals. And he goes, yeah, you're fine. I was like, okay. So I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and get real high. You know what? If it's good enough for Jesus, good enough for me. I'm gonna go rinse these off to get rid of all the extra bits and whatnot. Rinse it off in the parts washer, and then drop it off at WOW on my way home to get it rebuilt. And then yeah. So after stripping the paint, I kind of took the front headlight ring to the polishing wheel, and instead I didn't get it all the way polished, but there's still a little bit of paint here that I need to take off, but for the most part, this is gonna polish up just fine, and I'll finish this up in a little bit. But I'd really like to just put the steering stem back on and do a test fit of the handlebars and make sure that the risers are gonna be far enough so I don't hit the tank. That's how I dented it in the first place. Oops. Stop it. No, if you sit on it, it's not bad. Like, sit on it real quick. It's a little bit more manageable than it looks.
Yeah, that's better. That's not too bad. Yeah, see, that feels a lot better.
I know it feels better. Basically, how I think I'm gonna do it. Hopefully the wide angle doesn't make it look too weird, but yeah. I got round steel that I could chop up and make into spacers. So I'll probably just do that. Maybe get them up another 1/2 inch. I'm gonna take the front forks up to WOW and get those done. I'll be back on Friday to finish up. I'll just make my own custom riser spacers. I'm probably just gonna just cut. I'm back in here. I know it was a quick cut, just making one consistent video. You guys don't care, but this is 2 separate days. So now what I'm gonna do is rebuild the clutch. I think that's the last thing I'm gonna do today, but I just realized that I can't do it while it's on this thing, so I'm just gonna use my ghetto ass lift thing. run my magnet through here and see if there's any metal shavings. Can't be that abused. The oil's actually still pretty clear from the last time I changed it. You know, fun thing is I'm not certified, but I was a mechanic for several years, Jake the Garden Snake. So what you want to make sure when you have your oil filters is, first of all, when you take off the old one, you want to make sure that this little rubber ring comes off with it. A lot of times if it's an old filter, this rubber ring will actually stick to your engine. And what'll happen is that you won't notice it, and you'll put your new oil filter over it, and you'll have a double seal, and then you'll piss oil everywhere. Well, I'm not gonna put new oil in it just yet. I'm gonna go ahead and put the filter on so I don't forget, because I will. I don't care what anybody says. A lot of people fill these things up. Doesn't matter. I do put a little bit of oil on it and in it, though, just to make sure the thread is nice and lubed so you don't cross thread it or anything like that. And then you just hand tighten it. You wanna make sure you hand tighten it, because if you don't hand tighten it, if you wrench it down too hard, it'll be a fucking pain in the ass for you to get off next time. Another basic tip when doing this, my oil pan is aluminum, but the bolt that they use for the drain plug is steel. What does this mean, Dan, you might ask? This means that if you tighten up your drain plug too much, you'll strip your oil pan out and you have to get a new one. There we go. Moderately tight. Fuck. The bolt was here, and when it came out, it literally somehow defied the laws of physics and flung into the oil pan. Fuck. Fuck. Got my discs, got my spring kit, and I got my gasket in here. Now, a good way to remember, because some of these bolts are going to be long, some of these bolts are going to be short. So a good way to remember where these go is get yourself some cardboard and then stick them in the shape of the way it goes into the bike, and then you won't forget. There we go. Because now I got to peel off all the gasket goo. These are pretty loose. They don't require much force at all to undo. I don't know what the torque specs are, but you can do it by hand, probably be fine. I guess they are worn out a little bit. They don't look that bad though. So here's all the old plates. You get the small one that goes in first to the very back, and then the rest I believe are all the same size. And then you have the friction plates in between. So I'm gonna let the other ones soak in some oil in the meantime for about, what, 20 minutes? Remember, the small one goes in first, and then the rest of them. Now you need your new springs. And then this is where your little outline comes into play, because now you know exactly where and what bolts go in where. Oh I gotta do is put oil back in this bike. Oil's changed, everything's good there. Now the last thing that I kind of want to do is I'm gonna make a little space rather than using a handful of washers like I guess either most people would or the Jake the Garden Snake edition. I have some solid steel round bar that I'm actually going to use. It's about 1 inch in diameter, maybe 1.5 inches. I'm gonna cut probably little spacers, drill some holes through them, and put that underneath there, and that should be plenty. Give me an extra probably about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, just so we have bar clearing, because that way I don't have to order a new set of these. If that doesn't work, I will have to order a new set. I'll have to go with 3-inch risers. These are 2, meaning that there's 2 inches between the bottom of the eye and the actual riser. And if I go up any more, it's gonna be probably about up here. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do real quick. Spacers. Now I just got to drill a hole through them. That's the size of the bolt. Then we can put these underneath the bar risers. I'm pretty close with the way the risers are now, but I don't think that these are gonna work. I was just really hoping I didn't have to spend another, you know, 50 or 60 bucks on a different set of risers, but it looks like, yeah, probably have to. Maybe get some like 3 or 4 inch risers just to be safe. They also make ones that curve upwards, so I'll start looking into that. But clutch is done, brakes are fixed, tank is almost done being painted, front forks are almost done being rebuilt. Like all I've got left now is to essentially reassemble it once the forks get put back together. So the next video you'll see on this will either probably be just a quick reassemble or the re-ride. But thank you guys for watching. See you next time.